Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Festival at Panihati. Sri Ramakrishna's conversation continues. God has different forms and He sports in different ways. He sports as Ishvara, Deva, man and the universe. In every age He descends to earth in human form as an incarnation to teach people love and devotion. There is the instance of Chaitanya. One can test devotion and love of God only through His incarnations. Infinite are the ways of God's play, but what I need is love and devotion. I want only the milk. The milk comes through the udder of the cow. The incarnation is the udder. So, that's a very nice example Sri Ramakrishna is citing. If the entire creation is compared to the entire body of the cow, the udder is the incarnation. The entire creation is permeated by the divine, but the udder is the incarnation. What's the idea? That it's true that the ultimate reality is not only this. It's very interesting that that in our scriptures constantly that negation is there, that the Brahman is not this, not this. So this, not this, so nahang, nahang, this, not this, not this. The bhaktas say, just interpret it as not only this. Means by negation, when you go to the absolute and from where then you come back, then you see the entire creation is nothing but the manifestation of the divine. And not only that, there is so many things which is not perceived beyond our perception. That also is the projection of the divine, the seen, the unseen. To give an example, when the white light passes through the prism, it breaks into the spectrum. We think that the spectrum is of 7 colors, but actually there are infinite spectrums. Our eyes can perceive only the 7 spectrums. There are spectrums which are below the red, infrared. There are spectrums which are above the violet, ultraviolet, which we cannot perceive. But it's the same white light which has been projected both as the visible spectrum as well as the invisible spectrum. So, that's how we can understand what it's meant that not only this. He has become everything, seen, unseen. Now, how to interact with Him, how to relate with Him if He has become everything? As Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the devotee's heart is the God's drawing room, is living room. That in my own house I can go anywhere. I have the access at each and every point in my own house. But when any guest comes, I meet him in the living space. So that's how Sri Ramakrishna is saying the devotee's heart is the God's living space. So there he is palpably you can communicate with him palpably in your heart. And not only that, because of the intense devotion of the devotee, that intense earnest devotion of the devotees, God do incarnate from age to age. He incarnates so as to communicate through love, through devotion with the devotees. The divine incarnates, and it is only through the incarnation that one can communicate with the divine. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here. That in every age, he descends to earth in human form as an incarnation to teach people love and devotion. There is the instance of Chaitanya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the incarnation of the divine. He incarnated to teach humankind this love and devotion. So there's an instance of Chaitanya. One can taste devotion and love of God only through his incarnations. That's a very interesting thing. Where we'll find that Swami Vivekananda in one of his lectures is mentioning a wonderful thing. What he's saying, I will just read out that portion of Swami Vivekananda's lecture. It's in the Bhakti Yoga. This incarnate teacher and incarnation. That's the chapter in Bhakti Yoga in which we find this paragraph. What he's saying, avatars are the teachers of all teachers, the highest manifestations of God through man. We cannot see God except through them. We cannot help worshipping them. And indeed, they are the only ones whom we are bound to worship. No man can really see God except through these manifestations. If we try to see God otherwise, we make for ourselves a hideous caricature of him. There is a story that an ignorant man who was asked to make an image of God Shiva, and who after days of hard struggle manufactured only the image of a monkey. So this is a very interesting thing, that in the scripture we have the idea of the divine, of Brahman, of Ishvara. All these ideas these lofty ideas are there. And now with my imagination, if I try to just have some conception of the divine without any reference to some examples, some living examples, it is almost impossible to in any way conceive of the divine. We will make a caricature out of it. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. Swami Vivekananda is saying that in our attempt to make the image of Lord Shiva, we will at last make the image of a monkey. That unless these avatars are there, incarnations are there, it is very difficult to comprehend what's mentioned in the scriptures. The avatars are the living commentary of the scriptures. We will find even in our Lila Prasanga, the Ramakrishna and his divine play, the Lila Prasanga, there Swami Sharadananda is indicating a very nice, interesting incident. What he's saying, for the first time, when he went to see Sri Ramakrishna, that he has heard, before that he has heard of Samadhi, he has read in the scriptures of Samadhi, but he thought these are never possible. It is something which is just something abstract. It is a concept. Thus to forget everything, to be absorbed in the divine, we have never seen such an instance. Not only that, someone told that someone goes to a samadhi, state of samadhi, and he went to see him, and after that he became extremely aversive. He had developed an aversion to the idea of samadhi. Why? Because that person seemed to be in extreme pain. He was sitting with his body was extremely curved. There's a curvature in his body, and his face was a full expression of pain. And seeing that, he developed an aversion. Now, for the first time when he visited Sri Ramakrishna, some divine song was going on, and Sri Ramakrishna went into that ecstatic state. he went into that bhava, and his face was beaming with joy. His entire body was illumined. And seeing that for the first time, now he had that conviction that what the scripture says is not just mere concept, abstract concept. It is possible to realize those states in this life. So now you will understand what is meant by that it is only through the incarnations we can relate to the divine. Otherwise, those concepts have no meaning. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying here, it's only through the divine incarnations we can communicate. So our earnestness, it's true that the ultimate reality, that as we were saying, it's only through the avatara we can communicate. It is because of our earnestness, the God incarnates from time to time, and the life which they lead remains as an example for the humanity to follow that as a path of devotion. And to develop love for God is only possible when we have these incarnations amongst us. No one has seen, as in the Bible also it is mentioned, no one has seen God. He is only perceptible through the Son of God. It is only through the Son of God, only through the divine incarnation that one can relate to the divine. So that's the thing which Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that he is the udder. That if you have to drink the milk, milk is the devotion. How to drink that milk? The milk of the cow comes to the udder. So divine incarnation is the udder through which you can drink the milk of devotion. Was Sri Ramakrishna hinting that he was an incarnation of God? Did he suggest that those who saw him saw God? Did he thus speak about himself when speaking of Chaitanya? It was a hot day in June 1883. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the steps of the Shiva temples in the temple garden. M arrived with ice and other offerings and sat down on the steps after saluting the master. Master to M. The husband of Manimallik's granddaughter was here. He read in a book that God could not be said to be quite wise and omniscient. Otherwise, why should there be so much misery in the world? As regards death, it would be much better to kill a man all at once instead of putting him through a slow torture. Further, the author writes that if he himself were the creator, he would have created a better world. M listened to these words in surprise and made no comment. The ways of God are inscrutable. Now the masters, he says, speaking to M, what he's saying, can a man ever understand God's ways? I too think God sometimes as good and sometimes as bad. He has kept us deluded by his great illusion. Sometimes he wakes us up and sometimes he keeps us unconscious. One moment the ignorance disappears and the next moment it covers our mind. If you throw a brickbat into a pond covered with moss, you get a glimpse of the water, but a few moments later the moss comes dancing back and covers the water. One is aware of pleasure and pain, birth and death, disease and grief, as long as one is identified with the body. All this belong to the body alone and not to the soul. After the death of the body, perhaps God carries one to a better place. It is like the birth of a child after the pain of delivery. Attaining self-knowledge, one looks on pleasure and pain, birth and death as a dream. How little we know. Can a 1 seer pot hold 10 seers of milk? If ever a salt doll ventures into the ocean to measure its depth, it cannot come back to give us the information. It melts into the water and disappears. So very interesting that what Sri Ramakrishna read, even we find it's quite justified. That the God, we say he is benevolent, he is kind. But seeing the creation sometimes we find, is it so? we'd start doubting that there is so much of pain, so much of suffering. We find no meaning out of it. We will find the same thing. Even Narendranath in the Gospel, we find when he's a young Naren, he's yet to evolve. One day he came to Sri Ramakrishna and also spoke in the same manner. What he said? That very interesting. What he said, the scheme of the universe is devilish. I would have created a better universe. That's the words of Swami Vivekananda. The scheme of the universe is devilish. I would have created a better world, a better universe. Not only that, we'll find it's also the word of Shiva, Lord Shiva. There's a very nice this Puranic episode that Brahma, after creating this entire universe, he is the creator. Now, he was as if infatuated by his own creation. With his 4 faces, he was looking without any, winking. His eyes was not, the eyelids were not even falling. He was looking at his own creation. Now Shiva found that why should one be so much infatuated by his creation? Because it is not perfect. As he has created, he is extremely infatuated, but the creation after all is not perfect. It is full of imperfection. There is disease, there is death, that for food one creature will be devouring the other creature. So everywhere you see this suffering, disease, death. So why this creation? So Shiva went to Brahma to ask this question. He asked this question to Brahma, but Brahma was as not responding. He appeared to be as if highly infatuated by his own creation. He was just staring at his own creation. And then Shiva, out of anger, rage, that there was a 5th head which popped up and was looking upwards, Brahma's head. And Shiva, out of extreme rage, has plucked off one of these head of this 4. And Brahma shouted in pain. This has removed that one of the heads of Brahma, saying that you have created this your universe which is imperfect, and you are so infatuated that you don't have even the courtesy to answer me. And then Brahma, just in one sentence, what he says is something very interesting. He says, when you look at this universe, from your perspective, you see everywhere imperfection, suffering, disease, death. You see it everywhere. But as such, the universe is just an occurrence. It's just an happening which has happened. All the suffering is the way you react. That's very interesting. The way you react. Now Shiva immediately understood what Brahma wanted to say. So he actually repented for being in rage, and he went for sadhana. He went into the deep meditation. In his meditation, when he went beyond his ego. Very interesting, even in the Yoga Sutra, that's the thing they say, that the moment the conscious principle comes in association with the body-mind complex, the ego is generated, and it is with relation to the ego, the question of pleasure, pain, everything comes. Raga, dvesha, everything comes with respect to that ego. If we go beyond the ego, everything is just mere happening. From that altered state of consciousness, when you are no more associated with the ego, everything just happens. There is no question of reaction. All the reaction comes when the ego comes into picture. So here also we find when Shiva went into that state, where in the deep meditation, what happened? That's very nice, it's mentioned, that he found the entire creation is no more there. It has as if vanished. And then what was there? Was there only nothingness? No. He could see that only the consciousness and consciousness alone. And that's what made him dance in ecstasy by just constantly repeating Hara Hara, Vyom, Vyom. That this Hara Hara means everything has been, Hara in Sanskrit means to take away. The entire creation has been taken away. Hara. Vyoma. Nothing is there. Everything is just Vyoma, vacuum. That only I exist. And realizing that, he was in an ecstatic mood, dancing. And then he came down. He became Dakshinamurti. That's a very nice idea. That when you are coming down from the Himalayas, you are facing the south. And when you are facing the south, you are full of compassion. Why? After realization, you are coming down to relate your realization to the entire humankind. So that's why when you are facing Dakshina, south, that speaks of compassion, because the Himalayas are in the north. When you are coming down, you are facing south. Why should you come down? You are coming down just out of that unconditional love, kindness for the entire humankind, to teach them in the path of yoga. So what's this episode actually speaks of? The same idea, that from our standpoint, from the egoistical standpoint, the world appears to be imperfect. As such, it is just as it is. When we go beyond the ego, when we go beyond this our existence, our egoistic standpoint, there is no question of pleasure, pain, anything. This duality vanishes. So that's why to judge God from our standpoint is merely childish. As Swami Vivekananda gives a very nice example, that the mother dog was lying lazily and its puppies were fighting. For the puppies, the fight was very serious. They were thinking, I will just simply kill the other one, the sibling. They were so serious. But the mother was not at all bothered. She was just lying, in no way interfering with these two puppies' fight. Why? For the puppy it is very serious. Mother knows it's just a childish prank. So from that standpoint, it is just a childish prank. Even in the gospel, we find in some other context that when Sri Ramakrishna is saying that everything is God's Leela, God's play, someone immediately reacted by saying, yes, everything is God's play, but we are dying here. We are suffering. And immediately Sri Ramakrishna again corrected him by saying, where are you? Who are you? Everything is He. It is He who has created this sense of you and me. Why? Otherwise, that Leela Pushtai Hoina, that the game won't be, you cannot enjoy the game unless you have this sense of you and me. I still remember when I was in school, in Ramakrishna Mission School, residential school, I have to look after the students, and during the study period, when I went, I found that they are all studying seriously, very sincerely. But one of my senior Swami said, actually they are very mischievous. Don't be fooled that they are so sincere. You will find that though they have kept their book open, they are doing a lot of things which has nothing to do with their studies. And one day I really found out that. What I found that some student has kept the book open, and there was a notebook by his side, and as if he was taking notes. Apparently it will appear as if he is taking notes. But when I intently looked, I found he was constantly turning the page and writing something, again turning the page, writing something. I thought, how can someone be taking notes that way? And then very slowly, without letting that boy know, I went behind and to see what he was doing. And I saw the name of the players of two cricket teams, India and Pakistan. These two cricket teams, the players' names are there. And he has created a scoreboard. He's constantly turning the page, writing scores. And then I asked the boy to come to the office with his notebook, with his book, and I asked him to explain what he was doing. And then I came to know that there is something called book cricket he was playing. So there is a way that when you turn the page of a book, so the facing page will have only the odd numbers. The page which you are holding, that will have the odd numbers, and the page which is flat, that will have the even numbers. The last number has to be even. Suppose the page number is 80. Then in the next page, 81 that you are holding. 82 will be the next page. So all the facing pages, the last digit will be an even digit, like either 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. These are the only possible digits which you can find. So now arbitrarily he will be just turning to a page, and if the last digit is 0, means that the batsman is out. If it is 2, means he has scored a double. If it is 4, he has scored a boundary. If it is 6, he has scored an over boundary. And if it is 8, there cannot be a score of 8. That means 1. That he has taken a single. And that's how he was playing a cricket with all the names of the cricket players of this Indian team and the Pakistan team. So that's an interesting thing. What's the thing? That he alone is playing, but you cannot play alone. So he has assumed the roles of all these players, of both the team, and he's enjoying the book cricket. That's the book cricket. So that's how I came to know about it. So as if God also is doing the same thing. He is one, he became many to enjoy the Leela, the spontaneous happiness which is his nature. That to enjoy, he is just having this sport, this fun. Where actually all these players are none but he. It is he alone who is playing this wonderful game. And he has imparted this sense of ego to make the game interesting. But actually it is he and he alone. So that's why when Sri Ramakrishna is saying that who are you? It is all he. So there is no question of you and me suffering. Because it is the God alone who is playing. He has made that sense of you and me to really make the game enjoyable. Otherwise, if you feel I am alone playing, you cannot enjoy the game. So that's how. So now you will find from that standpoint, from the standpoint of Ishvara, there is nothing called unjust. Everything is just a game. Everything is just a game. From our standpoint, from the egoistical standpoint, of course the question of joy, suffering, everything comes. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that from our standpoint to judge Ishvara, to judge God, it has no meaning. He's saying that sometimes I feel that he is good, sometimes I feel he is bad. So even for a sadhaka, when his mind is beyond the state of ego, he is in a very state of transcendence, that he finds everything is okay. Even when his mind comes down from the egoistic plane, he may also find that okay, that why all this suffering is there. So that wonderful, this duality we find even in the avatars, even in the man of God. We find that very interesting. Even in the life of Jesus, everyone remembers his last words. What's that? That God, please forgive them. They don't know what they are doing. So that he is asking for forgiveness. But we forget one thing. Just before that, he said something. What? For a little moment, he also got his mind got clouded because of ignorance. What he said? "Oh God, have you forsaken me?" That was the sentence. "Oh God, have you forsaken me?" After saying that, then he is saying this. So what that's sometimes, "Oh God, when you have forsaken me," when he is saying that, what it means? At that time you are thinking even God is an evil. And then the next moment again, when he is going beyond his ego, he knows that everything is his divine play. What he is saying nicely, that please forgive them all. That tremendous compassion is coming. They don't know what they are doing. They are still in ignorance. I am not in ignorance. I have came out of it. Now I realize they are in ignorance. And that's why they're doing all these foolish things. Please forgive them. So from which standpoint you are looking at, that's very important. So if you are beyond the state of ego because of your spiritual evolution, then everything appears to be perfect. All the things appears to be imperfect only when we are still bound by ignorance within the domain of ego. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating. At dusk, the evening service began in the different temples. The master was sitting on the small couch in his room, absorbed in contemplation of the Divine Mother. Several devotees also were there and was going to spend the night with the master. A little later, Sri Ramakrishna began to talk to a devotee privately on the veranda north of his room. He said, "It is good to meditate in the small hours of the morning and at dawn. One should also meditate daily after dusk." So these are the Brahma Muhurtas, the Sandhya Kala. When the day meets the night, when the night meets the day, so this dawn and the dusk. So that's the time we find the entire nature is in a very balanced state, very calm. Early morning hours we find that yet the world has to become active. Everything is calm. And we find even our mind also resonates that external calmness. We find that our mind is also then the least disturbed. It's alert, awake, but the distractions are not there. That's a very wonderful state. And at evening also we find that the mind has, after the throughout the day's activity, it naturally calms down. So, even in our scriptures also that's why it's mentioned that we should take the advantage of this time when the day is is becoming dark, it is becoming night, and again from the night again it is coming back to day. So at these junctions, the dawn and the dusk, when the entire nature is quiet, that's the time we should always utilize for thinking of God, for meditation, because that's the time we find our mind is also calm. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna is instructing that it is good to meditate in the small hours of the morning and at dawn. One should also meditate daily after dusk. He instructed the devotees about meditation on the personal God and on impersonal reality. After a time, he sat on the semicircular porch west of his room. It was about 9 o'clock. "Master, those who come here will certainly have all their doubts removed. What do you say?" So, here this is the indication that he is a realized soul. Even in the Upanishads we find that many pose themselves to be teacher. But unless your own ignorance has been vanquished, how can you remove the ignorance of others? So in this Upanishad, we find this wonderful mantra, what? Avidyayam antare vartamana. When you are in antara, when in your heart still the ignorance is existing. Avidyayam antare vartamana swayang dhira panditang manyamana. But I think myself as a dhira, as a wise one, as a calm one, as the panditam, as the one who knows the intricacies of all the spirituality. I knows the self, panditam. The one who has the knowledge of panda is pandita. Panda means the Atman. So he thinks himself that he has realized the self. Manyamana, he thinks. But for such a person, he himself is going around in the cycle of birth and death. This Janghanyamana, is going round and round. Pariyanti, Mudha, Andhe Naiva, Niyamana, Yathandha. It is just like a blind leading the blind. So you will find that in the name of spirituality, this humbugism is there prevalent everywhere. Swami Vivekananda used to say that spirituality is not an easy thing. If those who are in the pursuit of spirituality, you will find that of them, 80% are pure humbugs, hypocrites. They're just posing of religion. 15% have developed some sort of insanity. They have lost their wits. Only 5% somehow is striving sincerely. So that's the statistics Swami is giving. So that's why when Sri Ramakrishna is saying here that what he's indicating, that here the divine incarnation is incarnated. So here, so those who are coming here, so know it for certain, they will be saved. That's what he's indicating. Those who come here will certainly have all their doubts removed. What do you say? M. That is true, sir. A boat was moving in the Ganges, far away from the bank. The boatman began to sing. The sound of his voice floating over the river reached the master's ears, and he went into a spiritual mood. The hair of his body stood on end. He said to him, "Just fill my body." M was greatly amazed. He thought the Upanishads describe Brahman as permeating the universe and the ether. Has the Brahman as sound touched the master's body? After a time, Sri Ramakrishna began to converse again. "Master, those who come here must have been born with good tendencies. Isn't that true?" M. It is true, sir. So, this good tendencies, what it speaks of? Those who are sincere, those who have really chose that liberation is my only goal. Spiritual evolution is my only goal. Two things. God's grace should be there, earnestness should be there. Both has happened. So this in the Upanishad again, there is a wonderful mantra. What is that? The same mantra is in Kathopanishad as well as in Mundaka Upanishad. What is that? Nayam atma pravachanena labhya na medhaya na vahuna srutena yame vaishabrinute tena labhya yasyaisha atma vivrinute tanum swam. What is it saying? Nayam atma pravachanena labhya. Someone may be giving wonderful discourse on the spiritual subjects. The self cannot be realized by that. Na medhaya, not by your intellect. This na vahuna srutena. I may go on listening, reading for ages together. Still, I cannot realize the self. How can I realize? Yame vaishabrinute. The one who chooses, for him only it is available. Now here we find there are two types of interpretation. Shankaracharya in one Upanishad is interpreting that to whom God chooses, on whom the God's grace falls upon, he alone can attain him. So God's grace alone is not by reading, not by just studying, not by hearing again and again, not by your intellect, but on whom the God's grace descends, he alone can realize the self. That's one interpretation. And in the other Upanishad, this Yame Vaishabrinute, he's again interpreting a different way. The one who chooses that no, this worldly life is not for me. I have to attain this spiritual goal in my life. So it is the aspirant who is choosing. For him alone it is available. Tena labhya. Yame Vaishabrinute. So these two interpretations. The one who chooses, and in another he is saying the one on whom the God's grace descends. Both are actually correct. That unless we are earnest, God's grace doesn't fall upon us. You have to be earnest. That Sri Ramakrishna is that wonderful example. The two farmers, they have heard that as per the forecast, weather forecast, that there is not going to be any rain this year. So one farmer thinks if there is no rain, what's the need of plowing the land? He doesn't plow. The other farmer, he has heard from his forefathers what? Never listen to the forecast. Just in the proper time, plow the land. So hearing from the forefathers is what? Hearing from your spiritual teachers. That go on doing the spiritual practice. Don't think whether I'm going to realize or not. So that's what is meant by don't listen to the forecast, just go on plowing the land. After saying that, Sri Ramakrishna says, now suddenly the forecast proves to be wrong. There's a torrential rain. Who will be the benefit? Who will be benefited? The one who has plowed the land. The one who has not plowed the land, in spite of the fact there is a torrential rain, is not going to get the benefit. So now you will find this example explains both. That if you choose, if you have endeavored as per your choice, then only the God's grace descend. So Sri Ramakrishna first says that those who come here, that what first he says, that just now we read, that those who come here will certainly have all their doubts removed. that speaks of his grace, that he is there as the master there who has realized he is the incarnation, he is a divine incarnation. Those who comes there, their doubt will be removed. So that speaks of his grace. And then here what he's saying, those who come here must have been born with good tendencies. There are sanskaras that already he has endeavored, he has plowed his land. That speaks of those good tendencies. With those samskaras he has come. And now the God's grace will descend upon them. Isn't that true? That's what he's saying. So what? The Yame Vaishavrinute. So those who have already chosen that, yes, I want to have this spiritual illumination in this life, and accordingly have developed those samskaras, for them only God's grace will descend. So that's what the Master, first he is speaking of the grace, but that grace is not going to fall upon all. It is going to fall upon all, but those who have not plowed the land, it is of no use. So that's why he's saying those who come here must have been born with good tendencies. That has made them come here. Isn't that true? Adhar must have good tendencies. So Ramakrishna, as an example, is speaking of one of his devotees, Adhar. He must be having good tendencies. That's why, in spite of the fact he is so involved in the world, he's a deputy magistrate, but still he finds time to come and spend time at Dakshineshwar in the presence of the Master. This Adhar, very interesting, this devotee, if you just read his life, very interesting, that being a deputy magistrate, after his work, he will come directly to Sri Ramakrishna. Being a deputy magistrate, he used to wear all this coat, pant, tie. He never had the time to change it. With that dress only he will come. Now throughout the day he used to work. So now he was extremely tired. So he will come to Dakshineshwar, sit in the corner of his room, and within a few minutes he will fall asleep. And one day this other just asked Sri Ramakrishna, what powers do you have? And Sri Ramakrishna jokingly, very nicely he said, see, I can even make the deputy magistrate sleep. I can make him sleep. So he was joking that way. But Sri Ramakrishna loved him very much. Because this Nayamatma pravachanena labhya, what you hear, that is not important. Na bahuna srutena, that what you hear with your intellect, that is not important. Somehow he must be having good samskara that made him believe the fact that Sri Ramakrishna is there to save me. I did not have to hear anything. I just have to be in his presence. He comes there, sits, and just with full, that relaxed way, all tensions gone. There's nothing to worry. I am there in the presence of my Master, and he has a nice, relaxed sleep there. So he has understood the real thing. So now what's the use of all those talks and everything? No, I know he is the God. He is the incarnation of the divine. I am in his presence. He is there to take care of me. So that's sufficient for him. So that's why he's saying Adhar must have this good tendency, and that brings him here. Just to be in his presence. That's something which speaks of your good fortune. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is indicating here. Master, a guileless man easily realizes God. A guileless man. That those who don't have much questions, doubts, guileless, the simple faith, they're just like Adhar. There are so many others that in Sri Ramakrishna's life we find that wonderful examples. There was one Rashik sweeper, Mathur, the sweeper. He knew nothing of the scriptures, of this philosophy, nothing. He saw all the so-called influential, these people of Bengal of those days, all the so-called, those who were very renowned person in those days in Bengal, they were visiting Sri Ramakrishna. Day in, day out, so many are coming. Seeing that he had a feeling that he must be a great person. Why so many people are coming? Coming, bowing down to him, sitting, listening to his talk. And he's a sweeper, he knows nothing of all those instructions. But one day he made it a point. Somehow I have to meet him. Sri Ramakrishna was returning to his room from the Ganges. He was actually sitting by the side of the Ganges and he was returning. And this Rashik just has hidden himself on the side of that way. By the side of a tree, he was hiding himself. And when Sri Ramakrishna was near, he simply ran and fell at his feet. And just said one thing. What's that? That please save me. Amake uddhar karo. Save me. Sri Ramakrishna never said tathastu, never blessed him. Only one thing he said, you are extremely clever. Bhishun chalak. The Bhishun chalak. That's the thing he said. And that was the only encounter Rashik had with Sri Ramakrishna. Now this Rashik's, this ancestral property is now one of the center of Sharda Math. Very interesting. This Rashik Mathur at the time of death, that he had only one encounter with Sri Ramakrishna. And then at the time of death, much later, Sri Ramakrishna has passed away many years later. He was quite sick, he has become a bit old, and now he was lying on his bed, and suddenly he said his wife, please take my bed by the side of the Tulasi Grove. That's in the courtyard of his house, the small courtyard. There you take the bed. And then, as if he was hallucinating, he said, bring these asanas. Sri Ramakrishna has came, Swamiji has came. Bring these asanas, let them sit. And the wife was doing all those things, but she felt it must be some type of hallucination because she never had any idea. And that's the wonderful way that he got up as if he was meeting them, he was conversing with them, and taking the name of Sri Ramakrishna, he died. Just a wonderful death. Just see that he knew nothing, but he had that guilelessness, that simple faith, that he is the one, is the man of God who can save me. That's why Sri Ramakrishna is saying that a guileless man easily realizes God. Nothing else is required. That simple faith, with that, no sadhana, nothing. If you have that faith, then God is there to save us from all this, our ignorance, and just liberate us. That's what Sri Ramakrishna, a guileless man, easily realizes God. There are two paths, the path of righteousness and the path of wickedness. One should follow the path of righteousness. So even in the Upanishads, they speak of this mantra, Shreyascha Preyascha Manushyametat Tau Samparitya Vivinakti Dhirah. Shreyascha Preya Shreyo hi dhiro bhi prayaso vrinite. Preyo mando yoga kshemat vrinite. What's that? Shreya and Preya. Shreya means which is preferable, which we should, the path which we should follow. That is Shreya. And Preya is pleasurable. Preferable and pleasurable. The pleasurable is always the path of that so unrighteousness, wickedness. Most of us take that pleasurable path as the Shreya. We mix it up. We think the prayer as the Shreya. But the one who is Dhira, one who is having that wisdom to vivinakti, to separate these two, discriminate these two, and choose the Shreya, he only reaches the goal. The other will be caught up in this will of birth and death. That's the Upanishad is saying. So in simple words, Sri Ramakrishna is saying there are these two paths, the path of righteousness and the path of wickedness. One should follow the path of righteousness, the path of Shreya. So with this, we stop our discussion today. The following, the conversation which follows, we will again take up in the next class. So thank you all. Namaskar.